everybody's doing pretty good this year. It's time for another year of seeding. I gotta admit, I'm very late this year, but there's many reasons why, and a couple of my videos I explained. So what we're gonna do this year is just get seeding. There's a few things that I do differently every year. Call it an experiment. One of my seed pots, this is just my regular, everyday 9x9. You've seen it before. I've got another one off to the side. It's called a Pro Hex. It's just got a different shape. It's about 22% more per tray. We'll see how that works. If it works out, great. One thing I've noticed when I was cutting up into my 9x9, they're in 12s. No big deal, no difference. But when I'm planting my yard, I'm thinking 9x9. So that I'm gonna have to change up a little bit. We'll see what happens. So we're gonna start again with our mix. Your regular everyday seeding mix. It's not a potting soil, it's a seeding mix. So it's much lighter, fluffier, lets the roots grow. There's not a, well, I won't say there's not a lot. There's basically no nutrients in there because a seed has everything it needs. I've seen this before. It's got everything it needs. But what happens once that plant starts to grow, gets its second light of true leaves? The roots aren't there ready to be transplanted. So I want something in that soil to get it going, just mildly to get everything it needs. So last year I went through all the bags, everything. This year I've got it set up nice and easy. This is just your regular organic fertilizer mix for a bucket this size. Honestly, very little. The seed again has what it needs. It's your bone meal. Always go heavy on bone meal. Peppers, tomatoes, love that. And you'll see later on in the video that I've got some tomatoes going. So I'm gonna up on that. This is a mix of Epsom salt and eggshells. Eggshells, again, half crushed, half completely blissed in powder. That way you get your slow release, your quick release. And then again, rock dust. Rock dust, you can go as heavy as light as you want. It's just there basically for what your worm castings are going to be eating on. But let's say you use a cup of rock dust, you're going to want a cup of vermiculite. You want to even that out because what you're doing is heavying out your soil. And what you're doing here is you've got a completely light mix for your seedings. Now you're putting in something heavy. So if I put a cup of rock dust, I want at least exactly the same, if not more, of vermiculite. Again, watch your breathing when you're doing this. This stuff is powder. Once that's all mixed, I'm going to wet it down just a touch. You'll see my water's been sitting out. It's dechlorinized. It's room temperature. I'm not pouring in cold water here. If you had to just pick a few of those things, that's all you had, I would say eggshells a must, vermiculite a must, and I'm just about to put in some of my worm castings. I've got a few worm bins. Most of them are outside. They're gonna stay outside. I always keep one inside, and that is for my seedlings. I'll never ever try to bring in outside products for my seedlings because once a plant's good and going, it can fight off whatever it wants. and very heavy on the lawn castings. I'm putting in all the beneficials, the bacterias. It's not really sure, it's got a lot of good things, but what I'm looking for is the bacteria, protozoa, get that soil alive and going for emergence. But that's why I don't want to bring in outside castings. And I sit here and I mix and I mix and I mix. But if all of a sudden that little seedling, when it's a plant, it doesn't make a difference, but if you have one little seedling and it's grabbing onto an area that's got too much vermiculite, too much worm castings, not enough bone meal, that one little plant, you're going to think that's the weak one and you're going to cut it out. It could actually be the strongest. It's just sitting in soil that it's not the best next to its neighbor. Once everything's mixed, check make sure it's a little dry. Your rock dust will dry it out. Give it another touch. Don't go crazy, just a bit at a time. So last year I had my backyard garden, which I always do for add a hot pepper, plus my main garden, which I use for seeds and sauces and pastes. This year my backyard garden again is going to be the same size, but last year I only had 3 acres for the exteriors for basically like my main plants. This year I got another 6 acres, so and again donated by a friend, which is awesome. So I've got 9 acres to do. So this year I'm looking at probably between 2,000 and 3,000 plants. But I am doing the mild, the medium, the hot, and the extra hot. Last year I only did the 1 mild, but honestly there was such a big demand for it. So this year I'm grabbing some of my old seeds and reseeding them. We'll see how it goes. Some of the seeds are 2-3 years old. I won't just go out and grab a new seed and then try to propagate next year, because I've got a 3 generation for organic, and I grow organic. I'm not going to take a seed and next year it's ready to go. So that's why we've got lots of lights in the house, lots of everything to do. So I think we've all seen this before. Just a light tray. Pre-cut these all into 9, so it's much easier just to cut them up. Lightly, very lightly, just fill it. You're not pushing. Your roots want to be able to get down there nice and easy. Once they're in there, again, a little easy poke on each. And you'll see it goes down a bit too easy. So it's always I call it the 2 poke. Top up again. And now you're doing your second poke. And you'll see a little bit more of a pushback on that. Grab your seeds. First, I'll pick up here. See, doing the butch tea. Another thing I did last year was I took every seed and dropped it into my mycorrhiza. got these all counted to 9. Seeing as I'm doing every single stage is getting mycorrhiza. To spend the time, soak the seed in the mycorrhiza, make sure it's totally coated. I'm gonna try again. I say every year I do 1 or 2 experiments. I think this year what I'm gonna do is just drop a little powder right on top before I top off the soil, and we'll see how that goes. Make sure I got a very, very big bag of mycorrhiza, because if you ordered through NiagaraHeat.com, I give you like a 5 milligram free bag, and that's where this is coming from. Again, it's from Organic Pantry. I think it's an amazing company out of Canada. I know I keep pushing different ones, but when you get treated right from a company and the mailing is great and everything's great, I'm not going to sit here and fight with it. So now the seeds are in, I don't push down. I'm just topping up the soil. This part is, again, the most important part. Don't swipe and push. You'll be moving your seeds around. Just top it down. You probably noticed behind me, my greenhouse, there's nothing in it. My greenhouse is my heating mat. I don't have a heat mat. I don't sit there and go in the dark. What I do is I put them in this greenhouse. It's nothing to do with light. It's nothing to do with keeping in the liquid precipitation. The only thing it's there for is the heat. This thing gets nice and hot. Once all my trays are done, I've got about 23 trays to go. Once they're all done, they go in there. Every window, I've got another one. This one's a 4-1. I've got some 3. The heat's going to bring up, and that's what's going to bring up the soil. That's why the water is room temperature. Everything I have out here is room temperature or warmed. I don't want to all of a sudden shock one little thing by putting a little bit of rock dust that's too cold, a little bit of water that's too cold, a little Epsom that I've left out. It's all room temperature. That way when the seed hits and it hits the warmth, it's ready to go. So I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to get these all done. I'll get back to you. And then that way, if there's anything I believe I forgot to mention, I'll bring up. But if not, I'll be sitting here for 4 or 5 hours seeding what I'm seeding. What I can do, if anybody's interested, tell you plants I'm seeding today. I've got 2 different reapers, even though there's one reaper out there. But I've got a reaper that is smaller from last year, and it's hot. I've got a larger reaper. It's hot. Well, of course the reapers are both hot, but I find the smaller is a bit hotter. So I've got what I've labeled Reaper 2 and Reaper 1. The 2 are my minis. I've got the Red Moruga, grown Butch Tea. I've got 2 Ghosts. One is what I've been growing for years, and then a few is what I've taken off my plants and redone, and they're like giant ghosts. The heat's about the same on the boat. I've got Naga Viper, I've got the Dorset Naga, I've got 4 different out of 7 pots. I'll be going through those later. For just the regular hot, I've got the Orange Habanero, I've got the Scotch Bonnet. For my medium to mild, I've got the Yahtzee, Peter Pepper, Cayenne. For my low, I've got the Bell, Basilio Baggio, and for the first time this year, this is my 3rd through my grow room, I'm doing the Long Sweet Red. One of the things that I'm doing this year is I've got this brown tomato. It's called the Sweet Christina. I was at a restaurant and I got on my burger this brown tomato at an organic burger place. And I asked them, so where did this come from? And they said, oh, just outside of Woodensville, there's an organic grower. So anyways, went and talked to him. He was sold out. So went back to the burger place, got another burger, got a slice of tomato, and took a few seeds of this thing. This thing tastes like a peach. It's delicious. I do want to track down and make sure it's originally organic and not some hybrid of something incorrect. Like if it is a hybrid, I'll grow it. But that's as far as it goes. But if this really, if I track down the fact that this really is an original heirloom tomato, I'm gonna be growing this for a long time. So we'll see what goes on here. I'll be back in a second when I see somebody poking their head out here. Be back in 1 second. Yeah.